In this episode of Breaking the Algorithm, I had the honor to speak with ex-Navy SEAL, ex-French Foreign Legion, father, husband, coach, Taylor Cavanaugh. Now, this man has had an incredible journey. He's been to prison. He's been to in the military, the French Foreign Legion, in battle, so much more. And he's gone through all of these trials and tribulations to come out the other side. An incredible human, wanting to serve, wanting to help, and now has dedicated his life to coaching and helping others be the best versions of themselves. So if you're wanting to understand what it takes to go through the most difficult times that most humans will face and come out the other side a better individual, some of the psychology, the hacks, the mental and emotional strategies, then this podcast is for you. Let's get into it. Here is Taylor Cavanaugh. Welcome to the Breaking the Algorithm podcast, episode 2, and we have a cracker for you all the way from the US of A, ex-Navy SEAL, ex-French Foreign Legion, current father, coach, badass, Taylor Cavanaugh. Welcome to the show, man.
Dude, Eddie, I appreciate it, bro. Breaking the Algorithm, man. I love that, bro. Like, dude, that's such a great name, man, because that's what it's all about, right? Breaking that mundane shit, that fucking programming and all that, bro. We're going to break this up, dude. Do it right.
Yeah, totally, man. And that's exactly why I wanted to get you on as our second guest. You know, I've followed you for a long time, and I've watched a bunch of your podcasts and interviews, and your story, man. It's fascinating. It's unique, and definitely original, man. You've got something different, and I want to get into your story, but more importantly, I want to get into your psychology, man, and your psyche and the way that you attack life, because I think that we can all take away a lot of that mentality that you bring to the table every day, dude. So again, thanks for joining me.
I appreciate it, man. And my the way I approach things is, I guess it was still evolving, but it was, I knew I was terrified of being average, man. I was just terrified of being a lackluster motherfucker. Maybe that's insecurity. Maybe that's rooted something, why is somebody ambitious? But I don't particularly think I'm like overly ambitious, man. I know I don't want to be average, and so that really kind of pushes me. And it started from a young age. The military side spoke to me, and I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. That really kind of spoke to me. The commandos, you guys got the SAS down there, and that whole world was fascinating to me. But as you do, you get into high school and chicks and sports, and I just kind of was like, yeah, I'll get in the military, but later. And I got kicked out of high school for weed and some other stuff, and lost some scholarships, and so just I was an okay kid, but I like to party and mix it up a little bit, and that brought me a little bit of damage. So going into university, created a lot more problems for myself, got kicked out of a lot of schools, was in junior college dealing drugs, and I just lost, man. Right. And I'm like, well, I got to get this college thing done. It was just kind of like an extension from high school. It's just how I looked at it. My grandfather was a captain in the Navy and now a military academy graduate. And so it was just like, hey, dude, you go to fucking university. I was just, you got to get it done. So I did. And I moved a lot of universities, but finally graduated from this college. But in that process, I had been arrested a lot of times, probably like 17 or 18 times with drunken publics and just nothing bad, but being a knucklehead, fucking meathead. And I had stacked a lot of misdemeanors, no felonies, but misdemeanors, DUI, driving while suspended, things like that. And I went to the military like, hey, man, all right, let's do this. It's time, man. And they're like, dude, you have pending court cases and you're on probation. You can't get in the military. And that's when I realized I had lacked a lot of self-awareness. Like looking back, I'm like, man, how did I not see I was creating this administrative hurdle? So went talk to a judge, and he's like, hey, you got to go to jail. So I went to jail for a handful of months just to clear that up. And so I'm a 23-year-old in jail, fresh out of university. And, you see, the destruction of methamphetamines, people poo painting, and just United States jails aren't pretty. Probably not in Australia either. It was just, but I got out and I was ready. And I went to some recruiters to talk to the Marine Corps, talk to different, and was turned down for tattoos, for criminal background. And really the Navy SEALs, which I thought were going to be absolutely no, were the only ones that were like, yeah, if you can pass all the tests, we'll give you a contract. So I was like, okay, because I was riding a bike, living at my mom's house, stacking boxes at a fucking at Home Depot, man. So I felt like a loser, and that was terrifying to me. So I was like, I got to get this going. End up getting my SEAL contract. It took me about a year of a lot of screening tests, waivers, letters of recommendation, training with active duty SEALs, really just put myself out there, but got it shipped, went through the whole Navy SEAL pipeline. It was about 18 months right through, no injuries, no fails, no nothing. It was hard, but I made it. Went to SEAL Team 7, was at SEAL Team 7 for about 7 years. And in that process, while I was there, was locked on, was getting early promotes, I'm a sniper, JTAC, went deployed to Iraq and Yemen, and we did some stuff in Mexico, but got arrested a couple times in those years I was there for a bar fight, and then just kind of some dumb shit, man. I was riding a golf cart at a Jimmy Buffett concert and got arrested, and that was it, right? That was that dumb of a thing was the nail in my special operations career, right? So because that was the second time I was getting arrested, going to jail on an aggravated assault charge and all these things, and it was done. Went to jail, got out, and I was out of the United States military, got into the civil sector, building houses, and then into the weed business. But that time I started taking Adderall, Xanax, alcohol, weed, started doing opiates every day, man, and was still had success. Still had some success, and you can't bend reality that long. And that's kind of when it all came crashing down. Then I'll turn it over to you, Andy. That's when it all came crashing down. I end up and I'm suicidal in my truck. No money, no nothing, no title, no anything. Almost 2 years to the day when I got out of the United States military, thinking about killing myself. I have a sawed-off shotgun next to me, going, "What happened? No money, no nothing." And that's when I went, "All right, I'm going to go in the French Foreign Legion and kind of just figure it the fuck out." And that's kind of where it kicked off.
Wow, wow. So it sounds like that was a big turning point for you, not only, moving into the French Foreign Legion, but also making a clear-cut decision that you were going to completely change maybe your value set and some of the way, like habits and rituals and the way that you live your life. Would I be accurate in saying that?
It didn't start, it wasn't quite that clear yet. Right. That came. I liked how you said that though, Andy, like changing the value systems. I knew something was wrong. I knew I didn't want to feel this self-sabotage again and this like breaking down of my entire life, that the way I interpreted and moved through the world wasn't normal or something because everyone else wasn't happening to. So I knew I needed just some time, man. And I knew the French Foreign Legion, if I could get in and make it, would give me some fucking buffer to where I wouldn't be, I would have a gun, I could deploy maybe, and I would be in something I was proud of, but also just a unique story. I hadn't heard of a Navy SEAL being a French Foreign Legionnaire. So I was like, all right, so that'll be cool. And also it'll be some new label to kind of fix my identity, right? That was kind of that. It's like I had some external validation I could feel good about again. And that's where I went. And so in that process, about a half decade in the Foreign Legion, it was a couple years into where I really started getting, and I realized, oh, I'm still not happy. It's internal. And that was kind of the piece where I was in the barracks room going, okay, we deployed to South America and Estonia and some other places. But in this moving around, I went, oh, the only thing that I can validate myself on is my daily habits. It's the only thing I can do. It's the only thing that makes me proud, because it doesn't matter what happens. If I'm not proud of what I did that day, I'm fucked. My clarity's fucked. I'm not living well. I don't feel good. And so that was really where it started. And I went, okay, let me just start building a good system for my day, a good blueprint, and just see what happens. And that's kind of where it all started, where I started getting my clarity back.
Yeah, wow, man, wow. So why don't we rewind a little bit to the Navy SEALs, and then we'll get into the French Foreign Legion a little bit. But it's quite an achievement to get into the Navy SEALs, go through that process. It takes a lot of mental fortitude, discipline. What were the biggest lessons that you learned from going through the Navy SEALs process?
Man, it was a great process of really learning what my body was and mind was capable of. I had it also really rooted my confidence in like I thought I was tough, right? But I had no real proof. And I'm not to say like it's tough. I don't really like that word, but just like I thought I had some grit, but I had no proof. And so that was like a really good feeling to like, okay, I actually do have a little bit of grit in me. But it also was very humbling because, dude, when you're in those pipelines, you see machines, man, guys who are just beasts, right? And also you understand that everybody has their weakness, right? Nobody gets through like Superman. It really broke, I had weak moments where I was just I always think back to those going, you ain't ever that cool. I don't, and that's what's beautiful. I see some fighters back there. I see Diaz and stuff. What guys that have really pushed themselves to the limit, most of the time they're pretty humble in the sense because they know their weak points. They push themselves to a breaking point and they know they're not all that in a bag of chips and that other people have strengths. And so that was that was a maturing process for me in that it really showed me a lot of pieces of myself that was helpful. But that training was hard, man. It was cold and long, and I hate running. And so it was a lot of conquering fear, being scared to go into things. And I hate heights and obstacle courses and jumping out of planes. And so it's like, it doesn't matter though, right? Really kind of getting into your body and going, I'm going to do this anyway. And regardless.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, that's what it's all about. And I guess every day through that process of challenging fear and facing that adversity, you're just growing bit by bit. Could you feel yourself mentally and emotionally like transforming during that time, or was it just so intense that you're just day by day just trying to get through? What was that experience like?
I was feeling really proud. Right. I was feeling really proud, especially the deeper I got into it and the connections I made, lifetime friendships. Man, I was proud of myself of being like in my dream. Like, not many people really get to execute their one thing they've ever wanted to do in their life. And so that was really a cool feeling to be like, to know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And that is a powerful feeling when you go, dude, there is nowhere on the planet that I need to be than right fucking here. And that presence was powerful, and it really was. It was a cool time.
Yeah, absolutely, man, for sure. I'm curious, what's the like going in from the U.S. Navy SEALs to the French Foreign Legion? Have you got a French background or at all, or how do you get into the French Foreign Legion when you're an American citizen?
So the French Foreign Legion, if anybody doesn't know, is it's a was started by an old king. It's about 200 years old to get foreigners funneled back onto the battlefield without the political pressure of French people coming back in body bags. They fought in every war from Algeria to Afghanistan. And it's about 7,000 guys, but it's almost all foreigners. So the process to actually get in is it's unique in the world in that you don't call ahead, you don't send an application, you don't do any of that. You show up at the gate, knock on the door, and it's like a big iron and wood gate, and a guy with a gun and a green beret will answer, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You go Christmas morning and knock on that door, they'll open it. And that's it, man. You volunteer your passport. They tell you to get up on the fucking pull-up bar, and if everything goes well, you don't see that passport again for like 3 years. They take it, give you a fake name, all that stuff, and that's the only way. You just got to go show up, knock on the door.
Wow, man, crazy, crazy. So you made that decision. You were out of the U.S. military. You wanted to get back in the game, and so you packed your bags and just literally knocked on the door. Is that right? You flew over there and just knocked. And yeah.
Dude, I had no money too, man, because I was living in my car for a few days, right? And I'm going, so I took some fast cash loans that probably cost me like 4 billion%. After I got out of boot camp, I had to pay them, but bought a one-way ticket and with my black duffel bag, man, and just packed my shit and went, man. That's exactly what I did. There's two areas. There's one in South France at the headquarter regiment, and then there's one in Paris, on the east outskirts of Paris. And it's kind of unassuming, but it's a base, it looks like a medieval castle, and that's it. It's a Legion Étrangère, Foreign Legion. base, and you got to speak French. So I didn't know speak a lick of French, but when you go into the process, it's 100% French. So they're speak all orders are in French, everything's in French. So that's a kind of a unique piece of it.
How did you manage the language barrier in the first 12 months? Was that a big barrier for you?
By getting my fucking ass kicked.
That'll do it. That'll get you learning.
Dude, my trial by fire, man. You know they say full immersion. This is extreme immersion. Extreme immersion because you're learning from guys with who are like Russian and Ukrainians and Romanians, and so they got my French has like an Eastern European accent. It's very strange.
Yeah, yeah, that's wild, man. Mate, tell me a little bit about the culture difference in the French Foreign Legion. Like, are the people in the French Foreign Legion, built a little bit differently psychologically, or like what's the core differences that you notice straight away coming from the USA culture in the military to the French Foreign Legion?
It's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question, Andy. That's a really good question. It's the culture's tough. It's cold. That's the only way I can say it. It's very tradition based. It's very formal, very strict salutes, very formal. Like you march everywhere, so it's that's the one piece. Also, there's like no autonomy. You check in, check out. It's like prison with a gun, man. They're searching your bags on the way in, searching your bags on the way out. So it's drug testing you, spot checking, very tough. A little bit of violence mixed in. You also got a lot of guys that grew up tough, man. Guys that grew up in Russia, some dark hole in Siberia. You have a lot of Ukrainians, Romanians, Brazilians, Colombians, South Africans, look, some Australians, man, sprinkled in there. I've worked with some good Australians. So it's a it's a very Eastern Bloc-ish culture. So if you can imagine that type of environment, and you got a lot of guys there who can't go home for legal problems or don't want to because their pay is like 4 times as much, right? So they're making it rain. For us, it's a big pay cut, but for them, they're crushing it. And so, but it's a tough culture. So I would say to answer your question directly is it's less autonomy and a little bit colder.
Hmm. Mate, what sort of psychology, like when you go into an environment like that, I mean, you've been to prison, you've been into the US Marines and Navy SEALs, you're in the French Foreign Legion. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every environment that you go into really, really calls for a different version of yourself, mentally, emotionally, physically, for sure. When you went in the French Foreign Legion, was it a rattling moment where you're like, fuck, I've really got to pull something different out of me here? Or did you feel like people had to sort of level up to your standard? Like, give me a bit of an idea around the standard shift and what you had to do mentally and emotionally to really step up, because I know you sort of thrived in each of these categories. So tell me a bit more about that.
It was humbling. It was a baptism in humility because no one gave a fuck I was a Navy SEAL, right? Some guys might ask me some questions, and I wasn't volunteering the information, mind you, that I did not want, but people would find out. But it was humbling because, man, there's some really savage motherfuckers out there physically, right? And so the runs were really hard. I'm bigger. I'm 34 going back into boot camp pretty much. So the runs were hard. That was humbling. It's a lot of mountain work where I ended up going. So it was cold. I had to shed my old identity, my old ego. And that was because they're like, hey, Navy SEAL, come clean this fucking toilet. Right. Like for like years, for a couple years, right? While I was low man on the totem pole, or at least the first year. So it was a lot of, man, I really got to get mentally strong here and really find the lesson in everything, even the difficult guy or scrubbing the toilet for 3 hours. Like I had to learn some Zen shit, being like, you're exactly where you need to be. Nothing in the past matters. Nothing in the future matters. Right. This is exactly where you need to be. Don't think. And it was a practice in presence and patience. Right. Because I had to burn some karmic debt. I felt lost, alone. What the fuck am I doing out here? I had a lot of those questions, right? And And so I had to really just kind of quiet the mind and go, you know what? I'm going to use this to write a great story. I'm going to use this to as a time to self develop and use the Foreign Legion, no matter bad or good, right, as a vehicle of self development. And so that's really what I had to from the SEAL teams. It was, hey man, I'm living my dream. To the Foreign Legion goes, man, I have to evolve into a different person here. And that's kind of how it went.
The experience you've had, like I said, you've gone through prison, you've gone through, homelessness, Navy SEALs, French Foreign Legion. Tell me what's been one of the hardest moments for you, and maybe speak to a few of them. But being someone who seems quite positive, optimistic, but really up for some of the greatest challenges that can be thrown at a human being in general. What has been some of the hardest moments for you? And then how did you work through that mentally to come out the other side, the human that you are now?
Anytime I've dealt with guilt and shame have been the lowest moments in my life, right? Is when I've been in that guilt shame loop, self-induced, right? That self-induced pain that I know anybody watching this gets it. It's like no one can do to us what we do to ourselves. It is the worst psychological state to be in is like, why did I do this to myself? When I got arrested that last time in the SEAL teams, right? When I knew that it was over, like I just gave up my whole dream. I was curled up in the fetal position, man, hurting. I could barely breathe. Just that shame cloak just on me hard. Then also kind of moving in and breaking my life down again, right? And then it's all broken to pieces and I'm, alone in my truck, homeless. Why did I do this to myself? And and then being in the Foreign Legion and thinking, man, is what am I doing out here? What happened to my life? Like, am I just gonna stay in this mercenary world right after and till I catch a bullet? Like that was kind of I had a lost feeling of what I'm gonna do next. And then I decided what kind of pulled me out of any of those situations was, well, I'm not gonna leave some destruction for my family, right? By opting out. Yeah, I'm gonna put my boots on and just keep moving forward, right? That old cliche, but it's the truth. Set Just start moving, hold, weather the punches and see what happens. And you'll come out the other side. And also, man, I'm gonna control what I have control over. That's all I can do. When there's chaos all around me, self-induced or not, right? They have this saying in the SEAL teams I like. It's keep your world small. It's like get your world small, focus on the wake ups, focus on your training, could get moving again. It's going to be hard, but like focus on those immediate pillars, and then things start clearing up.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. That's fascinating. Keep your world small. So the point of that concept is to eliminate all of the chatter that distracts you from the moment in getting the job done. Is that accurate?
1,000%, Andy. And it's not like the goal's not transcending self at some point, right? The goal is, but if you're in a state of a phase of self actualization, right? Where you're like self-actualized and then you want to transcend self, right? Like how you help Annie and put out good content and stuff. It's like, but there had to be a self-actualization phase, right? And people that are in that self-actualization phase, I'll tell you what, there's very few things that matter. Very few. What is it? Fitness, family, faith, finance. What else is there? It's those things. So really anything else that's not helping those pillars, not building is fucking distraction. It can be people, places, or things. Shop them. Love them from a distance. It can be family. It can be later. I got to go into a period of isolation, right? Because I saw a quote today. My a good Warpath Fit on Instagram, a good dude, but he went through a cool phase of transformation. And he said he put a quote up that says, "Hey, God breaks it all down and takes it all away, right, to humble you, isolates you to see if you'll build, right, and then gives it back to you 10 times better to show you he's real." But the important piece in there is that isolation. How do you use that isolation phase? How do you use that? And that's where getting on a good plan. If you don't know what to do, right, reaching out to somebody who does, or identifying something that so what are you doing to during that isolation. So you come out the other side bigger, stronger, faster, wiser.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I freaking love that, man. I think for everybody listening, that concept, keep your world small, when you're in a moment of anxiety or you're stressing about all these different things that often absolutely mean fucking nothing, reminding yourself of that, it's like it's a cleansing system, isn't it? It really does just help you reprioritize and get focused on what actually fucking matters. Guess what? That comment on social media means fucking nothing. Why are you stressing about it? You know, the thing your grandma said means nothing. Just keep your world small and focus on that improvement. Like, I really dig that, man. I think that's a little nugget of gold that people are going to get a lot of value from.
Yeah, and it's just, hey, turtle shell up, focus on the priorities. I like what you said about there about reprioritizing. It's this constant going back, this constant going back. I heard a good quote. It was from an SAS guy. They said, "What's the difference between?" Somebody asked him on a pod, "What's the difference between an infantry unit and a special operations unit?" He said, "Special operations unit masters the basics," and I really like that. He goes, "The only difference is they master the fundamentals." And so I think about my day whenever I'm losing clarity or I'm stressing the fuck out or, or I'm getting a little ahead of my skis in any way. I always like to go back up, man, have I mastered my day, my wake up, my food, my training? Often, 1,000%, if I'm losing clarity and focus, those things are slipping. And so it's this constant resetting and reassessing, reprioritizing, and racking, stacking, and organizing back up those priorities, man. And that's the beautiful piece. You're never gonna get it fixed. It's never gonna be fixed. And everyone trying to run around getting it fixed, it's not getting fixed. So, but just understand, you just got to keep reorganizing.
Yeah, so true, man. So true. I think, you know, we all go through some big tough moments in life. I love that quote that you said, God will take it all away, humble you, and then give it back to you double if you really get your shit together, quote unquote, not specifically. But I think everybody goes through these really, really tough moments. And of course, when you can double down on those basics of mindset, of fitness, of like getting those micro wins on the board every single day, you no matter what happens at a larger level, you can go to sleep knowing that you're still on the fucking path, you're still on mission, you're still getting wins on the board. And inevitably that stacks up and changes your life. And I guess for you, man, that's been a staple all the way through this up and down journey that you've had, that you've really doubled down on keeping your world small, making sure you get those micro wins and controlling what you actually can day by day.
I like what you said about those micro wins of whatever happening on that macro level. A lot of times you can't control that, right? What happens in business or the market changes and shifts. It's like, are you going to hemorrhage energy on it, or are you going to go to the gym, right? Or just go, hit the saw. It's because that the clarity's too important, right? And we lose clarity when we get off the path a little bit. But the clarity's that's what keeps our optimistic lens open. It's what allows us to see solutions and not problems. And always, always knowing you're on the path, like you said, that you can sleep at night, no matter what happened. If you hit those wins, those non-negotiable pillars, are we robots? No, right? Are we always trying to be perfect about No, I get it, but we all know when we're being mindful about the things we need to do and when we're not. And when we start to lose sight of those things is when, people will ask, they'll be like, I don't know what I want to do. What's my purpose? This is this question, these types of questions. I go, well, are you who you want to be? No. Well, figure that out first. Do that. And the rest, whether you want to be successful in real estate, whatever, when your core is solid, you're going to be successful. Not to mention just daily habits, and your ability to be strategic and disciplined is going to be better. Your financial discipline, your emotional discipline, all that's going to be better. That's net positive. So really there's no net negative to just getting yourself organized and solid physically and mentally.
Yeah, that's fucking powerful, man. I love that point. What you said earlier about the toughest moments for you have been the guilt and the shame side of things. And, whether you're a badass Navy SEAL or an average citizen, no one escapes that, right? No one fucking escapes that. And so to the point of doubling down and what you just said there about, are you who you want to be? What I love to, I do this with myself all the time is, I've got a personal code. And so in my companies, we've got a value set and a team code. And then, for myself, I've got a personal code. And the way that I categorize success for me, it's not about, money that I make or achievements, although they're all freaking dope. If I'm ticking the boxes on the personal code and I know that I, spoke my fucking truth, I held the standard, I did the right thing when I needed to, whatever that may be, then that's what circumvents that guilt, that shame, and any of those negative emotions that inevitably will destroy your life long term. And so, again, another huge nugget of gold that you just brought up that I love is, figure out what is your code, who are you and who do you want to be, and how are you going to commit to living that every freaking day.
Yeah, because self-sabotage, which we've all done in our lives, is, at times, self-sabotage is rooted into our belief systems. It's rooted down to the values we hold, right? And you're not going to self-sabotage if you hold yourself to a higher moral standard. And what makes you do that? Well, being proud of yourself, right? Being proud of what you do, getting enough momentum and enough space to your moral integrity to where you don't want to break it down. And understanding that closed doors, open doors, it all matters, right? And longevity in business and relationships, man, you have to be solid. You can't be divided. You can't be doing weird shit when the doors are closed and coming out and think you're going to have correct vibration with people. Doesn't work. And this is when I started to really like embrace those universal laws and principles going, oh, it all matters. There's no such thing as a small decision. Nothing. So it's like, that's when I started to almost be terrified about, like, in a healthy way, about all decisions I was making. Like, just because you get away, nobody gets away with shit. Nobody gets away with shit. So that's like, you don't have a choice if you want to live a good life of living in an excellent life and having great relationships and being successful in business, but to be stand up for yourself. And that mitigates all. You're never going to feel guilt and shame when you know you acted right and did right. You won't. You just won't. When you don't break character, like the only times I've, really been really filled with guilt and shame is when I got too wasted and broke character and did dumb shit, made bad decisions. That's the truth. And when I stopped doing those things, man, I felt better and I didn't have bad days, man. Right? You might have a bad moment, a bad couple hours, but man, I don't have bad days anymore because the things I do, I'm proud of. That is a game changer for people and myself.
Powerful, man. Really freaking powerful. I love that. You mentioned belief systems a second ago, and I'm really curious on your journey through Navy SEALs, and I guess more specifically the French Foreign Legion. This podcast is about breaking the algorithm and breaking belief systems, societal norms, so you can live authentically and live your best fucking life. So tell me a little bit about how did your belief systems change, maybe on a personal level, but also worldview after going through Navy SEALs and French Foreign Legion, because I dare say that you've seen some shit, man, that most of us will never see or understand or even know about. And I'm really curious as to how your belief structured shift and, what happened in regards to breaking the algorithm for your worldview during that process.
Yeah. So really, it was like the off the field shit, which always, I think in deployments or in that work setting, things always were very clear to me for the most part, right? Right, wrong, very simple. It was things always get muddy because the truth was I didn't operate from superior moral ground. I would cheat on my girlfriends. I would fucking do whatever I wanted. If, okay, nobody finds out, like, I just really did whatever I wanted. And okay, nobody finds out, but I knew, right? I knew. And also, man, you're doing stuff and now you're stressed. Oh man, do I got some STD? Right? You're all these different choices you make and really pushing the envelope with drugs and drinking and driving and all these different things. Just My risk management was just completely off the track, and I was doing high risk behavior all the time. And it's just a matter of time before you get burned. And so my belief systems, I was like, why do I do those things? That was what I needed to like, why? And maybe I never really understood why, but I just decided that that wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. That was, I was trying to fill some hole, or I was pleasure chasing because I didn't have true purpose. And that was the thing, when a man doesn't have true purpose, he distracts himself with pleasure. And so I was just idle hands, right? And I was just, doing these things because I had time. And when I really shifted, I went, you know what? My belief systems are, it's not about me. I'm just a vessel. I got a story that gave me a platform to actually share a message about, hey man, you don't have to stay in this bad psychological state or place or wherever you're at. Just start moving. And then that's when I got out of my own way and decided making decisions that weren't based on what I wanted. Because if I slip, people fall, right? Clients and family, and now I got a new baby here and fiance. It's like, man, the responsibilities come, dude. I don't have the luxury to fuck up anymore, right? That ship sailed, man. And I think a lot of guys are in that position where you go, dude, you don't get it. You don't get any more fuck ups. You gotta act right. And that was like the belief system. I went, am I really am I an asset, or am I a fucking liability, man? I only want to be an asset. And as men, dude, we're either one. There's nothing. There's nobody in between. There's no neutral, motherfucker. You are an asset to the group, or you're a liability. If you're a liability, fix yourself or get the fuck out of the way. And that was, for a lot of years, I was a liability, man. Like, I would think I was an asset, but then a lot of times a liability. And I didn't want to be that anymore. So the belief system was rooted in that. I just wanted to be valuable to myself and my people, man, and not be that red flag, that that could, the other shoe could drop at any moment.
Totally, man. Totally. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that. Everybody's got their own demons. A lot of the time, it's a daily game of correcting yourself and making sure that you do live up to that higher moral standard. And you don't, I love the term you use, break character. That's awesome. Every day you got to go in there with intention and remind yourself not to break character. And I guess the only way you can do that as a man or a woman, but we're speaking to men as men right now, is to wake up every day with that clear intention of who you want to be and what sort of standard you're going to commit to, and make sure that every step forward through the day, you're cross-referencing, is this getting me further or closer rather to my goal and to the individual I want to be, or is it taking me away from it? And if you can make your decisions based on that sort of thought process, you're giving yourself the best fucking shot to win.
Dude, that's a very clear way you said that. Is this getting me closer, or is it further away? Really, it's always one of two. Nothing I can even think of is like, oh, it's not doing anything. No, it's helping you or it's hurting you. It's very clear. And that cross-referencing, it's a good term. It's that sanity check, right? Sanity check yourself. And here's like a little tool if I start negotiating in my mind, I'm about to make a bad decision. It's like we negotiate. You don't negotiate a beautiful decision. You don't negotiate getting up early and go to the gym. You're not like, oh man, well maybe I can if I no, you negotiate, you're like, oh, I can go do this, or I deserve it, or man, I've had some stress. It's always some fucking the devil trying to convince you of some shit. It's like, dude, if you're trying to convince yourself, just stop. Because that's you. You don't need to do that if it's something that's very clear, that's positive.
That's so true, man. I think that's a really good point for everybody listening. We are so freaking good at convincing ourselves wrong decisions are right in the moment, and then obviously, as soon as we do it, we know that we shouldn't have done it, but we sit there and tell ourselves these stories. And I think everybody has gone through that and will resonate with that point. So it's either a hell yes or a no, full stop. If you negotiate, it's still a fucking no. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like, it's not a big deal. No, it is a big deal, because here's the truth. Butterfly effect's real. So therefore, if the butterfly effect's real, right, you take that left, you take that right, your whole life's different. You might have the big pieces in, but your life is different. You're gonna meet somebody different along that path. You're gonna meet, you make that decision. You do this, dude. Your life's different. So I just want to ensure that no matter how everything works out, I want to be like, you know what? I didn't negotiate with myself, and I made the best decisions I could with the information I had. And I can live with that. That's the truth. However the cookie crumbles, man, I can if I can live with that. That's the truth.
I love that, man. Don't negotiate with terrorists, and everyone's got a mini terrorist in their mind trying to derail you.
Can't do it. Can't do it, man. Right? We're trying to wreak terror, bro. Terrorists, somebody's trying to do some jihad in our brain, bro.
That's right. Exactly. Totally, man. Bro, I'm curious about some of the intense situations you've been through in battle or in war. I mean, you've experienced things that most people would just cannot grasp mentally and emotionally. Was there a moment in battle, on the field, in war that sort of reprogrammed you forever or sort of changed you in a way forever?
This is a good question. It's deep. You know what? I feel pretty good. I feel good about all the decisions I've made in the military. I never lost my or anybody around me. I never saw anybody lose their moral compass. I never saw anybody act unprofessionally in the units I was in. And so in the negative, in the positive, I feel very good about the person I am. Like I know I'm a good person to my core. I'm not fucking an evil motherfucker. And that is very helpful for me because the way I move through the world now, I'm proud of myself and I don't have like demons haunting me. And so that I would say reprogramming in the positive in that it's like that's very reassuring that like in situations that could be potentially tense or reactive or things that I've held my Spartan reserve on that and other people around me too. And that was, and the SEAL team's a very professional organization. I'm very proud to have been associated. And I always saw people act right, man. And uh, that feels good to not have any dirt behind me. And so I can, because I stacked it up karmic debt on the civilian side, on my own personal choices. It's nice. And so the reprogramming was actually in the positive because I look back on those times. I saw, you see some things that aren't ideal and that could potentially, you're like, man, but it also reprogramming that the world's a serious fucking place. The world is a very serious place and people aren't out here playing patty cake, man. And so there's lots of people say, hey man, don't take it so seriously. Chill out. I said, man, you should chill the fuck up. People are too chill, right, about their life. And I mean, like, bro, grab your nuts, make a decision, get better, right? This is serious shit, man. This is your life. This is your people's life. This is you, how you operate in the day. I'm not saying be grave and be doom and gloom, but man, get serious about some shit. Get serious about your business and your fitness, man, because man, this is as serious as it gets. This is fucking life, man. And so that it really taught me that, and that the finality of things.
Hmm. What's something about war that, you know, us civilians, individuals that have never been there could just never possibly understand unless they've lived it? Is there something that you think we should know about war that, again, unless you've actually been there and you've sacrificed the way you have and so many others, that we just don't fucking get it?
I would say never judge anybody from what something that happened in combat if because it's very confusing. Right? It's very confusing. We forget that things are 360 in every direction and like you don't always know. It's very very it's confusing as shit. And I think that that's kind of always lost or not understood is man, it's complex. It's a very complex situation and that things happen. And so, never armchair quarterback from stuff you see. And people are out there, right? And they're fighting for the guy beside them more than anything else and their own life, right? And so, it's a complex situation and it is what it is. But, those dudes are out there, holding it down.
Totally, man. Yeah. And again, unless you've been in that sort of situation, who the fuck are you to judge, to be honest? I mean, that you guys are out there sacrificing, putting your lives on the line every single day. And so I completely agree with that point. I'm curious as to the culture in the army, and obviously as a Navy SEAL, you know, you like you just mentioned, you're fighting for the person next to you. There's a brotherhood. There's a standard of like loyalty, integrity, respect for each other. And I guess when you come back to civilian life, and I know you coach a lot of men to upgrade themselves, improve themselves, you know, the way society is right now, there seems to be a lack of masculinity. I think things are turning a little bit now, but there's been an attack on masculinity for at least the last 5 years. What do you think we can learn as men? This is for all the men listening. You know, what can we learn as men from your experiences in the Navy SEALs, in the French Foreign Legion, that as men in civilian life, what do we need to change? How do we need to step up and maybe break the algorithm in regards to the way we show up in our best masculine versions of ourselves?
We're leaders, man, by design, right? And leaders, it's a heavy responsibility. You don't get to do what you want, right? You don't get to pleasure chase or live in comfort, right? That alpha wolf dies early, right? From the stress. We forget, man, and once you accept the fact that you're a leader and your decisions aren't even really yours anymore, that you set the example and set the tone for everybody else. Well, guess what? Things change. We don't get the opportunity to have them be emotionally unstable. We don't get the opportunity, man, I've had a hard day. I'm going to fucking have my drink, whatever. Nah, man, right? Hold your spark reserve, right? Fuck how you feel. That's the truth. It doesn't matter. And that is a powerful thing. And so also there's some other pieces. If you're setting an example and setting the tone, well, you better be physically fit. You better have your confidence up. Dude, if you're fat, you can't even pick up your wife and kids and run with them you got a problem, right? If you can't run a mile, you can't be confident, right? I'm not saying you got to run some 6 minute mile or something, man, but if you can't move a little bit and be confident and mobile, it's very difficult to lead people in an effective way, right? Not to mention, here's another thing, probably the most important thing. Don't expect anybody else to listen to you if you don't listen to your fucking self. That's asinine. You said you were going to get up early. You said you were going to start a fitness program. You said you were going to get in shape and you didn't do none of it. You said you were going to start that business, didn't do it. And now you're trying to tell your kids what to fucking do. Man, they're going to be like, fuck you, man. Right? You don't expect anybody to listen to you. You can't even listen to your damn self. And that was something that I had to learn because I wanted people to respect me, listen to me. I couldn't even hold myself to the standard. Fuck, man, that was a hard pill to swallow looking in the mirror when I'm like, okay, if I'm going to expect other people to listen to me, then I have to, what I say, I have to do. Right. And like my fiance knows things that if I say something, I mean it, man. Right. I'll die trying to make that happen because like I learned that my words, all we have is our word and our reputation. So you better be serious about maintaining it and building it and then not breaking it down because one, oh, fuck, removes 1,000 attaboys. So it's easy to break down. It's hard to build up, man. And so how we move in the world matters. You can't fake a frequency. Don't be doing weird shit. Hold yourself to a higher moral standard and build yourself in the right way.
Mm. Yeah, that makes total sense, dude. And I think everything from like success in life in general, it comes from self-leadership and taking self-leadership seriously. And when you look at it from you've got yourself as that leader, the individual that has to uh, help the family, help your friends, etc. And then at a societal level, you know, that resonates across the board and you're going to have larger, deeper, meaningful relationships. And then that example, of course, will flow on to others and grow from there. And then that example will flow on to others. But I guess, you know, I don't know how you feel about this, man, but I feel like the last 5, 6 years, maybe even longer, that there feels to be less self-leadership, less discipline. Thus, at a societal level, there's less loyalty, connectivity, less integrity potentially in a lot of different areas. And I think now's the prime time for men, especially, to come back to self, come back to character, and through that process, not only transform themselves, but transform that level of brotherhood and loyalty and integrity and camaraderie with their friends, their family, and their communities. And I think none of that can happen, and the world can't change unless we sort our shit out as individuals and as men first and foremost.
It has to start from the center circle ourselves, right? And then we build out after we self-actualize. We can help our families, our communities are this. But man, it started because we all got too goddamn comfortable. Society got too comfortable, especially Australia, the United States. We're geographically isolated. Nobody's invading us. No, everyone's like, so what happens? The feminization of society, right? Now, femininity has a lot of beautiful traits. Running an organization or a massive cut, it's not, those values aren't what's going to push the meter, because it's, hey, man, it's okay to be soft. It's okay to get up in. No, fuck how you feel, man. You can be emotionally intelligent and not be soft, right? That's the difference. Also, accountability went out the fucking window. I don't know where, but somewhere along the lines, somebody said it was okay to not be accountable and to not work hard, right? If that accept handouts, it's okay to. No, men seek responsibility. Men seek responsibility, don't shy away from it. Men approach work, approach themselves in a serious way. And once once that accountability and that piece comes from that self leadership, really kind of identifying, man, I need to take the reins on my own life. Now, you and I both know there's tons of badass dudes watching this, right? There's tons of that connectivity, but a lot of us are all isolated. But you're right, bringing that tribal groups, like-minded individuals, platforms like this where people go, oh, okay, there are motherfuckers out there that think like me. You're right. We're all, a movement's happening, man. It's international. I think you see it too, where it's like this awakening coming back. This awakening of like, bro, we can be emotionally tapped in and aware, right? Be self-aware, be situationally aware, environmentally aware, success across the board, financially, physically, in our families and relationships. That's the standard now. That's the fucking standard. And so if that's the standard, then we all got to level up, right? Because we all got areas to improve on. And so everybody doesn't have time to playing fuck games, dude. And it ain't time. It's time to get to work.
Yeah, so true, man. I love that. I love that you're one of the ones that have been preaching this online for a long time. So I really dig it, man. Let's try to help some of the viewers and stuff a little bit now with some peak performance, because I know you're all about peak performance physically, mentally, emotionally. I'm exactly the same in all my companies, in my personal life, in my athletic life. I'm always trying to get that freaking edge, man. And I'm curious as to how much they focus on this and work with you on this in the Navy SEALs and French Foreign Legion, but they train you to, I guess, be unbreakable and unshakable. So what are some of the simple mindset or toughness hacks that you could share with us that maybe you learned from your experience in the Army and the Navy SEALs, or maybe that you just taught yourself in the journey, man? But is there any sort of mental toughness hacks that really resonate that you think we should know about and implement into our lives right now?
Well, I would say there's probably no hacks, right? There's probably no hacks in mental toughness, because we get mentally tough by doing tough shit, right? You get mentally tough by leaning into the fear. A lot of it's fear, right? You started businesses and run things. How many times you've been fucking scared? A lot, right? But it's like those pieces, every time we conquer that fear, we get more mentally tough. Every time we conquer that fear, we level up a little bit. And so I would say really walking into that fray, but also being very clear of where you're heading. That visualization of that larger scope, that big dream, that man, okay, man, seeing yourself as an operator, seeing yourself in that correct vision with the business and how you're running shit. That allows you to tap into some deeper energy, because you're like, okay, I know where I'm heading. I know I'm on this path and I'm doing all the correct things in here. And then it's just leaning into it with repetition. I think mental toughness really comes down from the reps. You can't get away from the guy that's done something hard 1,000 times, right? That guy is just going to be more mentally tough than somebody who's done it twice, right? It's that I say the reps. Just seek things that are hard. Identify, and I'm not saying we got to be taking cold plunges every day, right? I'm saying if that's part of it, then cool, but that's not really what I'm saying. It's there's whatever you're resisting should lean into. Wherever you don't want to look, if you don't like waking up early, guess where? Guess what you need to stop doing? Get up early. If you don't like going, being in a calorie deficit, or you can't hold it, that's probably where you need to look. If you're scared to start the business and you've had the idea, that's probably what you should do. Those are the types of things where that's self-awareness, Andy. And that's quieting the noise, eliminating a lot of the daily variables and the bullshit, so you can actually get clear of what is going on internally, what is causing you fear, where should you head. That develops self-awareness that only comes when you use those periods of isolation and correctly.
Powerful, man. Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly prescribe to that mentality and that understanding that the fear or the things you fear, that is the compass, that is the direction you need to go in. And, if anyone's listening to this thinking, where do they need to start in order to start building mental toughness, fortitude, etc., then it's that thing that fucking rattles you. And, one of my biggest fears was skydiving. And I did my first skydive. And once I did that I was like, fuck, I can do this. I went and got my license, 20 jumps or so later. The cool thing is that when you keep going, that fear, it transcends and it turns into something different. And I think people forget that when they're attacking fear, they feel it and they feel the pain and they think it's going to stay that way forever. They don't realize that through the process, it becomes exciting. And you grow rapidly through that process until you're a completely different human. And so I think that the process of attacking your fears for any men or women, but especially the men listening right now, is fundamental to your lifestyle. What I'm curious from you, man, and I'm interested to see if it's something similar to what I do, like when I'm under pressure. But let's use skydiving, for example. You're about to jump out of a plane. You could possibly die, but you have to think about ways to modify your emotional state, keep you calm, and handle the pressure without cracking. Now, dude, you've been in every situation. You've had guns pointed at you. You've been in crossfire. You've jumped out of planes. I'm sure there's stories you probably can't even talk about. What do you go through mentally and emotionally to not crack under pressure? Because we've just told people to attack their fears. When they're going forth and doing that, who do they need to be and what do they need to do mentally and emotionally to make sure they can see that through?
You got to be a confident whole person. You have to be when you're in that plane, Andy, when you've gone up and you face those fears, guess what though? You've also a guy that's got his disciplines in check. You're also a guy that has his fitness in check, right? You're confident. So your internal dialogue is going to be much different than somebody who's going up there who has no self-discipline. It's very hard to have positive self-talk when you know in the back of your mind you're full of shit. Right? That is the truth, right? You can't Jedi mind trick yourself into being confident. Confidence is built from doing what you say you're going to do a lot. And so you in that plane going, all right, I can do this, right? I can snap in because you've proved to yourself you can. And that's why I say you have to start with the who to be mentally tough. Because to have good, positive, correct self-talk, you have to know you're not full of shit. Because you're just lying to yourself. You're like, I can do this, when in reality you can't do shit. Right? Yeah, you gotta be damn sure that you can do this. You're like, man, I'm doing this. Man, I'm feeling man, I know I got this. Let's focus in. Let's do this. Because you can revert back to all those things, those hard things you did. So it always boils back to get that rooted discipline back. Get that rooted discipline. And then we can get into the self-talk and the how to breathe to get your sympathetic nervous system down and these and that, right? All that stuff's very important, but those are all the cherries on the top that are kind of the detail work.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so again, to summarize, to make that really clear for everyone, I think that you've hit the nail on the head. We can either go to the extreme of facing fears, but before you attack those big pillars, get those micro wins of just showing up every day and staying true to your fucking promises. Stay true to your word. Those seemingly insignificant things are actually the thing that is going to give you the building blocks and foundations to attack the larger fears, goals, and achievements in life, right?
Oh, well said. Because it's like Yeah, I said I was going to get up early, but I didn't. And it's not a big deal. I don't really have to. Yeah, it is a big deal because when you're up in that plane trying to tell yourself, man, I can do this. It might not be the most glaring piece, but you were kind of cutting yourself short on all these other things. It's like a fighter walking into a cage and he knew he took a bunch of days off, right? The guy who knows he took no days off and didn't cheat on his diet, didn't drink, didn't party, didn't wasn't fucking fixed, like who really is a different level of confidence. He doesn't have those chinks in his armor. And that's a very important piece when man, I did everything I can to be ready for this moment, right? Just start hacking away at those little wins because that's honestly fear. That's the first initial piece to attacking fear. Man, can I even do what I say I'm going to do can I hold myself to a better day? That's important. And then we're going to start biting off, jumping out of planes and all that stuff because you can go do it. It's just going to be harder, right? You can obviously just go jump up in a plane. It's just your plane ride up is going to be a little bit different.
Totally, man. Yeah, I dig it. A selfish question here. I am curious. So, for situations where you've been under intense pressure, right? I mean, I find, let's say I'm about to do a bit of sparring in jiu-jitsu, or I'm about to jump out of a plane. Personally, one of the first things I do is I need to regulate my breathing and really try to center my thoughts. Like, for example, when I'm about to jump out of a plane, I'm repeating to myself, sky safe, ground soft, sky safe, ground soft. And I'm breathing just to really keep my shit together. Cause it still rattles me to this day. I'm not going to sit there and say I'm, fearless when I get up there. I need to manage my emotional state to make sure I exit and do everything I need to systematically. And same with, if I'm sparring or fighting or anything like that. What do you personally use, whether it's a mantra or you're breathing, or is there anything that you have done or do to keep your shit together under those high pressure situations?
Yeah. Now, on the jumping, Andy, the day you're not scared, don't jump anymore. Dead serious. I've heard that from guys who jump a lot. They go, the day you're like, don't jump because now you're dangerous, right? Not now because it's the fear that keeps you sharp. Now on the regulating the sympathetic nervous system, they teach us something just to give people, if they don't know it, a very simple tool is 4 for 4 box breathing. And if people aren't aware of it, right? In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, 4 times. What that does is it immediately floods the system with oxygen, immediately cools the sympathetic nervous system. Your heart rate's going to drop. And what happens is when your adrenaline goes up and fight or flight things, your peripheral, you start getting tunnel vision, right? And so that just reopens your peripheral. It really starts to open up all your senses. And so you make better decisions. And so that goes with, man, if I've gone into a courtroom, right? Not to jumping out of planes or, but if I've gone into a business meeting or something, man, box breathing, man, is very powerful to bring you back into your present self, and which is exactly where you need to be.
I love that, man. Yeah, really good tip. And I think that transcends into everything, like you said, whether you're in a high pressure situation, legally or illegally, if you're going to court, whatever it is, if you're jumping out of a plane, if you're in a battle or sparring, or even if you're just going into an important meeting or you're taking a sales call, prepping yourself and grounding yourself through breathing, it does change you, man, in a really big way. And I think that's going to serve so many people listening here for sure. Mate, I want to give a little bit of inspo to everybody listening because, again, your journey's been so incredible and you're still on it. You're changing lives and doing some incredible things. And I know now, your mission is to just impact people, it seems, because you're helping so many people. You're on social media all the time. You're training, you're coaching, you're transforming lives. I want to get into that a little bit now. But before we do, have you got anything to say on like second chances for people that are out there and they've had a tough run? Maybe they've made some big mistakes. Maybe they've gone backwards in business and they're trying to move forwards. What would you say to those individuals that are looking to step into the 2.0 version or recreate themselves and having a go at a second chance?
Any backup, right? Any backup. put the money back in the business, reset the daily habits, go grab your nuts and go, I'm going to fucking do this again. And the beautiful thing about having your life in shambles broken on the ground is now you get to rebuild it with the pieces you want and the pieces that you know work for you, right? And now you get to build a better building. And that's very powerful when you go, okay, good. I'm glad it broke down because obviously there was some issue, the foundation, whatever. Let's fix it. Now let's build it again. And then understanding very clearly what caused that self-sabotage and what caused that destruction. Don't do that again, right? Because second chances, you don't want to make the same mistake twice. I've made many a mistake twice, and I paid dearly for it, right? With my careers and relationships. So now it's like, all right, stay focused into purpose. Be very cautious of pleasure. Very cautious. Is the trade-off worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Debate it. Understand it clearly. If it is, cool. If it's not, Charlie Mike, keep it moving.
Yeah, great advice, man. Powerful, dude. Powerful. So now, this stage of your life, you're out of the military. Are you out for good now, or?
Man, unless some crazy war kicks back off. But no, I'm good, man. I'm good. No, I love my autonomy. I love helping people, making money, right? Building a life, right? Being able to live. I love all that piece in the business side and the entrepreneurial side, being able to collaborate with people, people like yourself all over the world. Fascinating because you drop things that open my mind, right? You say things in a different way that change the way I view things. And so it's this constant evolution. And bro, listen to people, open your heart up, open your mind up. If you're not living the life you want to be living, we got to change some shit. That's the truth. And I always say, man, if it's not correct, assess why, then be open enough to change it. Don't keep saying you're going to keep figuring it out. If you haven't figured it out now and you're 50, I got news for you. You're not figuring it out. Get some different information. If somebody's living a lifestyle you want, just ask. I have mentors. I love it because I like expedited information, right? I'm trying to learn real estate. Who am I going to go talk to? One of my real estate homies, right? I'm going to go, hey, what do I need to do so I don't make the same mistakes? Don't recreate the wheel when somebody already has the plan. So that is whatever works. I want to get the synopsis, clean information, and that is really assess. And that takes dropping the ego a little bit, right? That takes dropping the ego and getting honest about where you're at and where you want to be. If you want to keep staying where you're at, then just keep doing what you're doing. But if you don't, then let's change some shit up.
So true, man. So true. And so just tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your coaching. Like, who do you help? How do you help? What's been your experience and some of the results that you're seeing, man?
Anybody that wants to get their mojo back that felt like they lost it, feels like they're kind of just maybe dragging ass, energy's low, want to improve, right? That can be physically, it can be psychologically. If their business is slacking or they feel like they've lost discipline, I just show them what works for me. That I built from just need because I needed to feel better with nothing, right? And so I just show people what I do every day. I record my stuff on Instagram like you see it. So people see I don't miss days, right? This non-negotiable stuff. We stay on the battle rhythm. I do all my stuff one-on-one. So everybody that signs up with me, man, we do work on one-on-one on Zooms. I don't do like AI or bullshit, man. You're talking to me, right? I don't outsource my shit, and that's important for me because I like that personal connection, right? I like to build. It's not just transactional for me, right? I really like to build a connection and understand because everyone's got a different situation. Yes, there's some pillars that need to happen. But there's nuances everywhere. There's different ways to speak to different people, and there's different situations. So we got to tailor things for it to make sense.
Mm. Yeah, I completely agree, man. And again, I see some of the results that people are posting and the things that you've been doing, dude. So it looks like you're killing it. You've been through more than most people in that will go through in multiple lifetimes. So I love that they can see the example of your transformation and who you are and just have something higher to strive for, dude. It's admirable and I love the work that you do, man. And now that you've gone through all of the biggest challenges, been into battle, Navy SEALs, you faced prison, French Foreign Legion. It looks like you're now facing your biggest challenge, which is fatherhood. How is having a kid and sort of having a new family change you, man?
It ups the ante, right? The game's upped. Now it's my decisions need to be even more strategic. Now I got to be even more emotionally disciplined. Now I got all those pieces, right? Now my daughter, she's going to measure every man off me for the rest of her life. So that's a whole new. So I'm going to set the bar real fucking high. These
I tell you
motherfuckers
what,
coming to the door, right?
I want to be a fly on the wall that first time she brings a boy home. I tell you what, he's gonna have his work cut out for him.
But I want to create a good energy in my house. I grew up with some tough energy, right? Just chaos and a lot of broken doors and shit like that, right? I grew up with it was tense, good times, but there was a lot of tense times, and I don't want that for my daughter. I remember how that felt and that like helpless feeling, and I want to create a safe place where that's got stability, emotional security, financial security. Well, something that's really important for me. So that's really my goals now.
Hmm. It's powerful, man. Well, again, I think that she's lucky to have you, dude. I know that you're on a mission to not only keep improving yourself, but improving others, and you're doing it for your family, man. And so it's awesome to see. I want to ask you one more question before we wrap it up, because I don't want to take any more time. And you've been phenomenal, man. But if we could rewind the clock and speak to that 15-year-old you, that savage that was probably running amok, what advice would you give to your younger self to make that trajectory maybe a little bit smoother and solve a few problems before you got there?
Focus, man. You don't need to go out, right? Focus. Focus on the sports. You're not missing anything at that party. You're not missing anything with that chick, right? That people say I don't have regrets. Fuck that. I got a bunch of them, right? I got a lot of regrets. Be kind to your mom. Be respectful. Those are probably my biggest regrets, right? Truthfully, making my mom sad or, worried, and that. Focus on your priorities, right? Be a good son, have vision, success matters. So focus in and, stop fucking around, man, because you just grab ass.
I love that. For everybody listening, get your priorities straight. And again, if you've got a goal, if you've got a vision, if you're a man or woman on a mission, then keep your world small, like Taylor said, and focus on those things that can get you closer to your goal, closer to your ideal character, not further away. Taylor, I want to say a big thank you, man. Episode 2 of the Breaking the Algorithm podcast. So much gold on this episode. Where can everybody here find you?
Anybody can always go to my website, taylorcavanaugh.com. That contact form goes right to my personal email. It'll have some of the story and pictures, so you're going to get me direct. Also, my Instagram, tcavofficial, always on the DMs. You can hit me up. You talk to me directly. I post daily workouts and collaborations with other guys in the area, which is cool. And then TCAV TV on YouTube, where I go into long form videos, stream of consciousness videos. I don't do any edits. And I always press play and record on the first take. And I've been doing those since the Foreign Legion. And so I do 2 a week. And then also full length gym workouts with guys and stuff, which is always cool to do.
I love that. So you heard it there, team. We're going to put the links for those in the bio here. But again, Taylor, thank you, my man, for joining us. I know there's so much inspo and gold on this for everybody out there, and wishing you nothing but success for the future, my friend.
Hey, Andy, I appreciate it. And I thank everybody for being out there. Let's break that algorithm, man. Let's build it right.
I love it. See you soon.